The Oracl3 Network.
We have an active shooter. We have an active shooter inside the fairgrounds.
Welcome to Active Shooter, a podcast that covers the whys, the hows, and the aftermath of active shooter and mass casualty events.
They have an active shooter in the building. A second call says they are being attacked.
I've been shot. 16910 means we got shots fired at 4:15 at Route 291. Sounded like an automatic firearm.
Active shooter, reports of an active shooter
mass casualty incidents.
Thank you for listening.
You are listening to Active Shooter, a podcast that may contain adult themes, explicit language, and graphic depictions of violence. Portions of this show may be traumatic for those under 18. Listener discretion is advised.
And a terrible story developing this afternoon. 4 people are dead, including a police chief after a shooting at a nursing home. It happened at Pine Kirk Care Center in Kirkersville, which is just outside of Columbus. Investigators say the police chief, 36-year-old Stephen Eric DeSario, was found dead outside the facility. 2 nursing home employees and the shooter were found dead inside.
So many of the active shooter cases on this podcast have transpired out of hate over a specific group, religion, sex, or terroristic ideology. That is often the basis for these terrifying events. Hate. Today's case is not different in that regard. However, it differs slightly in that the shooting we are covering today was rooted in domestic or intimate partner violence. Furthermore, many of the active shooting cases that we have covered have followed the same format, yet today's case will be slightly different from normal. We will talk about the actual shooting event first, as usual. However, much of what led to the shooting incident transpired over the course of the year leading up to the event. So, while we will tell the story in the typical fashion, much of the background leading to the shooting will be covered later when we discuss the shooter in greater detail. We will spend less time on the shooter's life growing up, and more about the dramatic, chaotic, and disturbing events that ultimately led to the shooting on May 12, 2017, which took the lives of 3 innocent victims.
Active Shooter the podcast is a High Five Holly production, and I'm your host, JT. If you've listened to our prior episodes, you know that the Active Shooter podcast team has taken the No Notoriety pledge, and we will not be sharing the real name of the shooters that we cover. We will be giving the shooters a pseudonym and refer to them by that name throughout the episode. This will help in clearing up any confusion in the story, while remaining true to our pledge in not naming the shooter by their actual name.
We will refer to today's shooter as Hank. The Pine Kirk Care Center, located at 205 East Main Street in Kirkersville, Ohio, housed approximately 23 residents as of 2017. The care center sat within the limits of a minuscule town of about 550 people. On May 17th, at around 6:45 a.m., 43-year-old Hank was hiding out, close to a wooded area located just to the rear of the care center. A man that lived directly behind the care center was also out by the woods, walking his dog, when he encountered Hank, who was believed to be shielding himself behind a bush. Hank was lying in wait for Marlena, his ex-girlfriend, to exit the center where she worked. Perhaps fearing this man would blow his cover, Hank made the desperate decision to take him hostage, using this innocent man as a shield of sorts. Wielding a shotgun, Hank was easily able to force the man to comply with his order. However, The man's wife noticed that her husband hadn't returned from the routine walk, so she called a coworker to ask that they check around the property, see if they noticed her husband outside. The coworker readily agreed and exited the building, most likely expecting to find a whole lot of, well, nothing. Except what he found was his coworker's husband, and he was standing with another man who was aiming a shotgun. First at his coworker's husband, then directly at him. Hank ordered the second man to follow them before instructing both men to toss their cell phones into the woods. Later, reports indicated that Hank may have told the men that he planned to shoot a woman inside the Pine Kirk Care Center, though this is unconfirmed. The men did as they were told and began walking into the woods with Hank, but what Hank didn't know was that one of the men had a second cell phone, which he covertly used to contact 911, whispering into the phone as he was being taken hostage by a man who inexplicably walked far enough ahead of his captives that one managed to call for help. The entire situation would be absurd if it wasn't so horribly tragic.
Oh, man. I just want to go to work, boss. You don't have to kill nobody today, man. You don't have to have us hostage. She's coming out. We're going to go get in this truck and go to work. We need help. We're in Kirkersville. This guy's got a shotgun. He's talking about killing someone. We're behind the nursing home.
Behind the nursing home?
Hurry up.
They're behind the nursing home. We're hurrying.
Kirkersville Police Chief Stephen Eric Desario was the initial responding officer. He had taken over as the chief of police a mere 3 weeks earlier, but he was about to walk into maybe the worst situation of his entire policing career. Chief Desario immediately radioed to dispatch that he located the man with a gun. As the chief exited his patrol vehicle, Hank fired his weapon, striking him with the first shot.
Go, come on, Mike. I called 911. He shot the cop! He shot the cop! He got him!
Sir! Is my officer down?
Hey, he just shot the cop!
Officer down!
Oh my God!
Where's our cop shot at? Sir, where is our officer shot?
Behind Kirkersville, Kirkersville, funeral home.
Okay, behind the funeral home?
Yeah,
where is he shot, sir? Where is he shot? Where is my officer shot at?
Right behind it.
Listen, I know you're behind the funeral home. Where is my officer shot? Where did he shoot him?
I'm shot down there. I know.
Where is my officer shot? Sir, listen to me. Is my officer alive?
I don't know. He just shooting.
Where is he shot at? Tell me the area he's shot at.
I don't know.
Where's the suspect?
911.
Where is the guy at with the gun?
I don't know. He's in front of the funeral home.
He's in front of the funeral home shooting?
Nursing home,
Or
yes.
the nursing home. He's in front of the nursing home.
Yeah.
Shooting. He's in front of the nursing home shooting. Get everybody inside now. Okay.
Huh?
Get everybody inside now.
I'm trying, ma'am. Oh my God.
Stay on the phone and do not hang up. Do not hang up.
Hey! There's a cop shot down here! Help!
Yes, we need.
Where are you? Where are you?
Here right now. Right now, someone's shooting in our building at 209. What's the address?
As he collapsed, it was apparent that the chief was gravely injured. His call over the radio were the last words uttered by the valiant police chief. Meanwhile, the residents and staff of the care center heard the sound of a single gunshot and sprang into action. This meant full lockdown mode, including barricading themselves into their individual rooms or offices.
Okay, we're at Pine Kirk. I need somebody here now. We're locking in the boiler room downstairs, and we're going to die.
No, Barbara,
we're going to die.
Barbara, you're not going to die. You're going to listen to me, and I'm going to help you.
Hank raced towards the building, specifically to the main entrance where he promptly shot out the glass of the front doors, gaining immediate entry. The center was locked at all times, requiring an ID badge to enter and exit the building. Visitors had to be buzzed in. This meant that the only way Hank was entering that building was by shooting his way inside. Once there, Hank came upon a nurse aide in the center's hallway. 48-year-old Cindy Krantz never stood a chance. She was shot at close range and was instantly killed.
I was on the phone talking to my friend and drinking coffee, and I heard it sound like a gunshot. And then a few minutes later, I heard two more shots.
His only target, was Marlena, who was hiding inside a nurse's office. The petrified woman who caused absolutely no harm and deserved no such thing was shot 11 times, 4 with the shotgun and 7 with a handgun. It was brutal, it was excessive, and it was utterly horrific. Witnesses who heard rather than saw the terrifying event heard Hank reload his weapon at least once. After shooting Marlena to death, Hank turned the shotgun on himself, delivering a single gunshot to his head, ending his life as he did hers. It was one last disgusting declaration of the control Hank so desperately needed to hold over Marlena. His disturbing need to be with her cost Marlena the opportunity to live the full life she deserved. His dark passion for a woman who didn't want him cost 2 other innocents their lives, which is a tragedy atop a tragedy, and completely senseless. The actual gunfire lasted only a few minutes, and by 8:45 a.m. Hank was located and reported to be down. During the shooting, there were 5 employees and 5 residents located inside the basement of the center. Some of the employees were just wrapping up their overnight shifts, and not completely aware of what was happening above them. 23-year-old employee Sarah thought perhaps a resident had thrown a chair. Those types of outbursts weren't completely uncommon, so Sarah didn't think much of it until a coworker raced downstairs, hurriedly telling everyone that there was an active shooter. The staff wasted no time creating a barricade in front of the basement door and calling 911. Sarah called 911 and then texted her mom, saying she was safe. She was on the line with dispatch for 32 excruciatingly long minutes, doing her mighty best to heed the dispatcher's advice that she remain calm and quiet. It is well-meaning and intentioned advice, yet extremely difficult to do in such a high-stress situation. Outside the care center, the police presence was overwhelming as a multitude of police jurisdictions arrived, ready to protect and serve.
They were running through the yard with their guns drawn everywhere. They ran down the alley. They were running out back there. They were running everywhere around here.
Dispatch had urgently been trying to reach Chief Desario, with no success. As such, additional units were sent out, both to look for the chief and to assess and handle the scene. As other officers arrived, they located their chief, lying on the sidewalk, dead from an apparent gunshot wound. It was a heartbreaking way to encounter your leader.
Come on, buddy, come on, stay with me. Come on.
Chief was pulled to safety until an ambulance arrived. He was rushed to Licking Memorial Hospital in critical condition. He succumbed to his injuries later that day, dying a genuine hero. Nearby, the Kirkersville Elementary School was immediately put on lockdown, and then later officials chose to close the school for the day. Because the shooting commenced so early in the morning, elementary school students were still arriving at school, buses filled with innocent children who were wholly unaware of the danger that lurked so close. Those same buses were diverted to another local school, Watkins Middle School, where they patiently waited for concerned parents to arrive. The owner of a thrift store that was also located close to the care center told police that she heard multiple shots being fired, sounds she instantly understood were gunshots. The Kirkersville United Methodist Church was located just across the street from the care home, and it was rapidly established as the command post for police, paramedics, and witnesses to be taken to for interviews.